Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, welcome back to the show. Guy, how are you?
Good, Rich. Thanks for having me on. I always enjoy it.
Absolutely. One of Biden's key nominees to oversee part of the Fed when it comes to banks, she'd be the Federal Reserve Vice Chairwoman for Supervision of Banks. Her name is Sarah Bloom Raskin. And you, Congressman, you are opposing her confirmation. Tell us why.
I'm doing everything I can to try to block her appointment. Now, I don't have a vote because, of course, I'm in the House of Representatives.
But you have a voice. You have a very big voice. So
exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I got 48 of my colleagues to get together to write a letter in opposition to Bloom Raskin. Hopefully that will put the senators on notice of just what came out during her confirmation hearing. So, for example, the Federal Reserve Board is there to set monetary policy. It is not to engage in public policy. That's the job of the legislative branch, not the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is worried about monetary policy. I'm talking about interest rates and employment numbers. That's it. Bloom Raskin has made numerous statements saying that she wants to use the Federal Reserve to go after the oil and gas companies, the energy sector, to shut off lending to companies that she doesn't agree with. That is wholly inappropriate, Rich. That is not the Fed should not be picking winners and losers. This would be detrimental to our energy sector. So for that reason, I wrote a letter to try to block her nomination and get the senators to support my position that she is not to be put on the Federal Reserve Board.
I mean, it's very problematic if somebody's going to use that position for activism to try to use the banking system against people she doesn't like. I mean, look, we saw with the Canadian truckers how GoFundMe decided that they were not going to allow those funds to go to the truckers, right? I mean, if you start using the banking system in America and you say we're not going to allow gun manufacturers to have bank accounts, we're not going to allow certain political groups to have bank accounts, you start doing that. I mean, that is exactly what we all fear in terms of them using that for political purposes.
Yes, and it's happening now, and I could just talk about Canadian truckers in a second, but with Bloom, what makes it so nefarious with Bloom Raskin is this isn't Congress doing this. She has quotes saying that the Fed is in a unique position, her words, unique position to effectuate environmental and climate change policies. In the unique position is this: it's that the Fed, they're not accountable to the people. The Federal Reserve, you're appointed, so there's no way you can get voted out of office. Our founding fathers wanted to have a legislative branch engaged in public policy where we were accountable to the people. The executive branch, other than the president every 4 years, is not accountable to the people. So she wants to expand the role. And, the left likes to run around talking about threats to democracy and undermining institutions. Bloom Raskin is the threat to democracy. The idea that you're going to weaponize the Fed to go after political opponents, that is the undermining of institutions. And just a word on the Canadian truckers. This, to my knowledge, this is the first time that martial law has been declared in Canada ever. And it was declared for a peaceful protest. These truckers are doing everything right, peacefully engaged in civil disobedience. And it's the fear of the liberal elites that purport to represent the working men and women of the United States and Canada. It's their fear of the working men and women that's driving this martial law. And it should be appalling and scary to anybody on this side of the border, because what Trudeau is doing is what Joe Biden and the left would do if they could get away with it. And you saw that when they used Bank of America to go after people's accounts. When they used GoFundMe, they shut that down for people that were trying to support Rittenhouse when he was on trial. So this is a scary view in the future. We've got to do what we can to stop this in the weaponization of all these institutions to go after conservatives.
Yeah, well said, Congressman. Well said. Congressman Guy Reschenthaler is with me. Yeah, even the New York Times in their editorial came out in defense of the right of the truckers to protest and try to affect change. This is the part about it too. I mean, this is how their method of protesting. This is what they have. This is what they got. They're using what they got. It's no different than what happened in the summer of 2020 after George Floyd's murder. People were protesting, trying to affect change. And Trudeau is a hypocrite because he was supporting those farmers in India who were blocking the roads for over a year, and he had their backs.
Right. Well, there is a big difference, though, between the summer of 2020 and the truckers, and that is the level of violence. The truckers are engaged in civil disobedience and peaceful protests, where in 2020, those rioters were destroying property. They created literally billions of dollars worth of damage. Federal law enforcement officers were literally blinded with lasers. It's wholly different. But look, I disagree.
Oh
with
no! I'm not trying to make the two. I'm just pointing out that he supported that. Trudeau was all in support of that in the summer of 2020. He was not out there saying that this needs to stop. Trudeau was not out there saying this needs to stop and people need to be. No, all the Democrats and the liberals were all in on what was happening that summer.
Right, and Kamala Harris was pulling money to pay the bail for people that got arrested due to violent acts. It was absolutely appalling. But let me be clear. I applaud the truckers for standing up and engaging in peaceful civil disobedience. And my question is this, where were we as conservatives in the United States? It took the truckers of Canada to show us how we should engage in civil disobedience. So hopefully we take a lesson, and next time our rights are ripped away from us by the unelected bureaucracy and the far left of this nation, maybe we can mirror what the truckers did in Canada and engage in civil disobedience.
Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, always appreciate it. Keep up the good fight. This Fed nominee is very dangerous for our country, and this does need to be blocked. What do you think the chances are they will be able to block Sarah Bloom from becoming on the Fed board?
I actually think it's pretty high. I think it's been exposed that she's far too radical and far too dangerous, especially for senators from oil and gas and coal states, for example, Joe Manchin, to then go ahead and vote for her nomination, because it would be so detrimental to the economies of energy-producing states.
Guy Reschenthaler, appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for making time. We'll have you on again soon.